Well, I finally did it. I finished the third book, so how does it all hold up? Hello, hello, my name is Brandon Wheeler. Welcome to my channel. I have a straw because when I was in the Army, I had a heat accident thing, heat stroke, something happened. I can't talk right unless I bite down something. So if I bite that, so that's why the straw, moving on. But I am a type of budding writer in my own thing. I have two books in my fantasy series, but I've been trying to read a lot more books and a lot more classics and everything like that, including reading through the Lord of the Rings books. I got the book stuff for Christmas, and I've been reading them throughout the year. I completed Two Towers, and now I completed this one. Now, first off, this is Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien. Of course, you probably know this. If you don't, it's about, going to destroy the ring and stuff. Is that what happens? Well, we'll see. First things first, not including the appendices. The appendices are at the back. But at least in this version of the book, it's much shorter than the other books. The other books are about, 400, over 400 something pages. This one only goes up to, I have it marked, 340. That's shorter compared to the rest. That's why, which is ironic because the movie version is the longest out of all the movies. But for all of you who've just seen Return of the King, the movie by Jackson, the thing with Shelob's Lair, that happens at the end of Two Towers. That doesn't happen in the Return of the King movie. Although I can see why they kind of did for the Return of the King movie because it's like it adds more runtime and everything like that. And let's get right into the book. It starts off first with, them of course conquered Isengard and everything like that. They talked with Merry and Pippin all about what happened. Really getting into, all the stuff with all that. That's what happened in Two Towers. Well, they write off with Gandalf leading Pippin going to Minas Tirith because he does the thing with the Palantir, but it was out there in the field. It wasn't out there at Edoras. So they write off and they go there. Back at the thing, they actual rangers from the north, like a whole bunch of dudes from the north, rangers and seemingly the sons of Elrond, they come down and they talk to Aragorn saying, remember, you have to take the Pass of the Dead and everything like that. So that's what he goes off the lead to do. And they're like, why are you going to take that? No one goes there, comes back. And just like, I have to do that. So they do stop first at Edoras, where Eowyn is. And she's hesitant and blatantly says, do not go that way. And eventually to the point where she's practically begging him, don't go and at least take her with him. That's how Eowyn is. And it does seem, I know I've seen some commentary people don't like about Eowyn, oh, she was in love with Aragorn. Blah, 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 blah. The book literally says that she fell in love kind of with Aragorn and everything. So it's just like, okay. But he says, I can't give you what you seek and everything, kind of like how it plays out. So she's left behind, and of course she doesn't like that. Same thing with Mary, one big ride with Rohan, he can't because the things. Then Durnhelm, it's actually given a name. Durnhelm picks him up, but it's not really Durnhelm, it's Eowyn, of course. But Aragorn and all these rangers and the sons of Elrond, they go to these area, the Pass of the Dead and everything. And Gimli, in the movies, he says like, an elf dare go underground where a dwarf dare not. Oh, I'll never hear the end of it. That does happen, but it's even more intense. Like, he is straight up scared, beyond scared of anything. Like, they're all scared, and the only thing that keeps them going is like, doing this for Aragorn, doing this for Aragorn. And he's scared out of his mind going and everything. So he makes it through. But the things of the dead, it's not like kind of like how it is in the movie. It's kind of like Aragorn speaks out. They keep going and they feel like something's following them, but you don't ever see what. Until they take over, like, they use them to kind of take over the ships and they see like the mist on the shore and they said, you're free. And that's as much as they use them. They don't use the Pass of the Dead to attack, save, the day at Gondor or anything like that. They don't do that with that. So I was like, okay, interesting. But, so that's probably, besides Shelob's Lair, the major difference is that the Pass of the Dead were used to help get the ships, like in the extended version of the movie, but not the actual help with the field or anything like that. There was a lot of the Duodyne Rangers and everything joining Aragorn with the Sons of Elrond, plus all the people who they since the ships or the Corsairs were defeated, all the people from Gondor, sending their troops and everything going up. Speaking of Gondor, it gets into Pippin being at Gondor, being part of like the Citadel and everything like that. There's a guy named Barad, but he's kind of like the guy who leads the Citadel. They do it in shifts and everything. He has a son. So you see a little bit more of the Minas Tirith, how it is and everything like that. It says they don't really see horses that much because like people can spend their entire existence in Minas Tirith and they're kind of surprised every time a horse comes in. They're like, "Ooh, horses!" It's like, really? They look at horses that much? But I guess they're just like, "Oh, all right." Uh, it's a little bit Denethor. I've seen some commentary of people hate how they did Denethor in the movie, which when I read the book, it's just kind of like he's kind of the same way. I don't get the hate per se. It's like what? I mean, what? Because he's eating tomato and showing like, oh, this guy's a jerk because he's eating tomato and everything like that. Yeah, we all hate him immediately looking at that, and it's just like, I mean, he's kind of obvious in the book that he's arrogant. He does not like Gandalf at all. He only tolerates him because something. Faramir likes him because Faramir mentions every time he's Mithrandir comes by, he tries to gauge if it's his wisdom. And like, what about this? What about that? He tries to talk to him and everything like that. But he, I don't know, Denethor, madness versus arrogance. He did give up and everything because unlike the movie where he does make mentions like, do you think the eyes of the White Tower are blind? And turns out there's a certain room that the stewards have. They have their own Palantir. Because remember what Gandalf said in the first movie, if you've seen it? And he says, like, they're not all accounted for, the lost seeing stones. We don't know who's maybe watching. Gondor has one. And Denethor, by his strength of wills, is able to see what Sauron is doing. The trouble is that he can't see victory or past what is being shown him. Like Sauron shows him, like, yeah, I'm gonna do all this crap. Okay, but how do you solve that? Denethor doesn't have any answer. He just sees that nothing is going to be able to stop it. That's what he sees, and he's just like, yeah, I've kind of given up in a such way that it's folly and everything. Doesn't mean he doesn't in some way still try, but he's just like, it's kind of pointless or so in the end. But I don't know. It's not really a departure from the way the character is. I mean, Faramir movie and book version kind of two different characters. Denethor book version and movie is like almost basically the same. So I don't see what the issue is per se. But it's interesting the whole thing. But he tries to burn fire. He does send Faramir off to try to save everything, and it seemingly they sent a lot more men than what they had, and Faramir, that conversation says, you wished our places were exchanged between him and Boromir. And he says, yeah, I wish that. He says that. That's in the book. That's not just something, no, they changed. No, that's in the book. But it's actually a much more, I don't know, in the movie you have them all fighting over the Skilioth and everything. But in the book, it feels like it was much more, he had maybe more men, but it was much more desperate. And because out there in the Pelennor Fields, from what the book version says, in the movie you have Osgiliath, then you have like a plain field of Pelennor, and then the Minas Tirith. Book version kind of makes it look like here's Osgiliath, and there's some like towns and stuff on the way in Pelennor to Minas Tirith. Like there's villages and stuff on the way, and they pulled everybody back into the city and everything. Although the women and children they sent like somewhere else to like an ally and everything. So there's like no real women and children in the city except those who refused to leave, like the Citadel guard's son. He refused to leave. He's like 10 years old. It's kind of funny. He's like, oh, Pippin. Everyone's amazed seeing Pippin, the Hobbit. Is like, what is that? And they use this word to describe him, and I can't pronounce it, so I'm not even going to attempt it. It's, again, language stuff, Tolkien language and everything going on with the book. So it's just kind of like, huh. That guard, well, I'll get into the guard later. But Denethor, his demise is kind of, it's not like in the movie, though. That is a departure where he jumps off and he, falls down a thing and stuff. In the book, okay, I guess I'll get into it. He does try to burn a farmer, but it's like behind a valley. It's not like a something and thing. It's like they go around a rocky area and stuff. The Citadel Guard, because he found out they were trying to kill Faramir, he leaves his post to try to go. He gets refused. He actually has to kill the guard there at the thing to try to get in there. Then Pippin and Gandalf show up, and that's where he Denethor reveals the Palantir and stuff like that, and Faramir gets him away, and then he burns himself to death inside the thing. He refuses to do anything. He actually does just burn himself. He doesn't like relent and like, oh no, I set myself on fire and run off. No, he just decides to burn himself because he didn't see any path forward. Now that I think about it, there's a commentary that I've seen about Saruman, which is a whole different thing. That Saruman movie version, people kind of, I've seen comments saying like he didn't see any path forward with how to defeat Sauron, so it's like, well, can't defeat him, join him. I think that's kind of maybe Denethor's type attitude, except joining him. He's not going to join him, but he didn't know how to beat him. Whereas Saruman book version was just like, oh yes, yes, I will serve you, but he really just wanted the ring himself. Unlike movie version where he's just like, join us, Gandalf. Against the forces of Mordor, there can be no victory. So maybe that's the kind of difference, but still, Denethor, still basically the same. He sets himself and burns himself to death, though. That is official. Okay, then we get the Battle Pelennor Fields. Rohan and everything arrive. They charge in, stuff like that. Although, real quick, they go through a portion of woods, like the wild men and everything, and a wild man leads them. There's like a big portion of wild men through these like different wood areas that the Rohan has to travel through. And seemingly the wild men kind of trouble them at different times, but they kind of stay in that forest and don't want to be bothered, so they allow them through. For this just like one time, and I was like, okay. So they get there, and then they start attacking everything. Kind of like how the movie, they start going through everything like that. Although everything's scattered. Movie version, they break through the front gate and they get in through the first citadel up to like the top or something like that. Book version, they don't. Book version, they get into they break the gate and the Witch King is there, and Gandalf is like trying to prevent him from coming in, but they don't actually get any further until Rohan comes in. So different version from book and movie, whereas they succeeded getting in, but I mean they were about to get in. Honestly, if Gandalf wasn't there, he's trying to do the same thing with the Balrog, like you shall not pass type thing. Well, what would happen if Gandalf? Well, he didn't break his staff in the book, I don't think. Did he? He might have. I just don't recall. But either way, Witch King did show his fire sword or whatever. But yeah, it is interesting. I've seen the clip. I haven't seen the full thing, but I've seen the clip of of course, you have Ralph Bakshi's Fellowship of the Ring, Lord of the Rings mashup of Fellowship and Two Towers. The people who made the Return of the King are the same ones who made the Hobbit, so the same type of style with that. But you have like they show like kind of like red eyes or something, but a crown on a faceless void. Like you don't see a face, but you see a crown and everything. It's basically kind of like how it describes here. So I was like, oh, okay, accurate. Although it's not accurate with the thing in the movie, like showing Pippin. Anyway, so oh gosh, what else? There's a lot of different characters in Gondor that are much more important. There's like a Prince of Emerlian. Prince of Emerlian. He's like some noble heir prince that comes in and he helps defend Gondor as well. He's pretty important along with others. There's only like 3,000 guys or more. Maybe 10,000 at Gondor at most, but it doesn't really give a number like how many are there. Plus, it doesn't really give a number that I recall in the appendices or anything, how many orcs were actually out there. But I know the movie they went with 200,000. I don't recall if there was a number. Either way, if you played the Lord of the Rings Return of the King game, which if you're like me, you did, in the game, you actually got to fight the Harridan. You arrived on the Pelennor Field thing. No horses, but you actually get to fight the Easterlings and fight them out on the field and everything like that. Whereas movie version, outside of the Black Gate, you don't see him again. Well, Faramir's group attacking them, but other than that, you don't really see him again. So it's just kind of like, well, where are they? Where are they? You don't see him again. I mean, you can you got the Mameluke. That's yeah, but that's not. I'm talking about the dudes in armor. and everything like that. That's what I'm talking about. It's like you don't see those dudes really again. This is kind of like, where are they in the movie? Like, where? I mean, they're cool looking, but this is like, where are they? In the book, they're there. And the thing with the Momo happens and everything. Theoden gets, wrapped by the Witch King and stuff like that. Eowyn defeats it, although she's, I don't know, a little bit more conversation between them. And of course, Mary does stab him. Of course, his sword is basically, was made to hurt the Witch King. I know a lot of people have commented that. And Eowyn, fulfills that. I don't know if this is true. I've seen a comment that the reason why the whole thing with Eowyn being a woman to defeat him, quote unquote, is that I saw a comment that on one of the videos of Eowyn that Tolkien read Macbeth and the whole thing about, oh, he should not be hurt by someone born of a woman. And Tolkien was like, oh, it must be a woman that defeats him then. And he was so happy he figured out the twist, and then it wasn't that. And he was so angry, that's why he made kind of like his own twist with Eowyn and the thing about no man shall kill me. Okay, a woman does it. That's why Tolkien did what he did, but it's just kind of like, I don't know if that's true, but if that's the case, interesting. So, I just happen to think that we still don't know anything about the Antwives. I don't remember anything happening about them being spoken of later on. Maybe the appendices. Oh well. But they get through all that. Eowyn's brought to the House of Healing. Given the more detail in Farmer, I know movie version, they kind of just look at each other extended. They maybe kind of talk, but Aragorn arrives with the pirates on the pirate ships, Corsairs, with the Duodyne and everything. They help with the city, but he also unfurls his banner and everything. Aragorn doesn't actually want to enter the city because he feels like, I am not rightfully crowned, I can't enter yet. But then, he does make an exception to go to the Houses of Healing because only the hands of a king can heal. And he helps heal Faramir, Merry, Eowyn. Eowyn and Faramir, during the whole Black Gate thing, they stay behind, they talk a little while, and Faramir is completely smitten with her basically already. And she's like, all right. And first she's like, no, but it's like, all right, okay. So it's basically what it was. And I was like, okay, interesting. Although I don't remember if they were ever. Do they have kids? I don't remember it saying them having kids. I guess they do, but I don't recall. I haven't looked at the things that they. I'll get into that. Blackgate happens. Blah blah blah. Let's get into Frodo and Sam. Sam, at the end of the Two Towers, because the whole Shelob thing happened, then he he takes Sting and the ring. But of course, oh crap, Frodo's actually alive, so Sam puts on the ring to actually try to go over there and everything. And he tries to sneak through, and then the whole fight between all the orcs happen. Although orcs are not exactly like the movie version, which like an entirely different thing. It seems like they were actually their own. They were there beforehand. They're like their own type of orc thing going on, but they start getting into fights, and Sam's like, okay. Kind of happens what he does. He doesn't exactly kill a lot. He does do some things, but he spends a long time searching for the Frodo. Then he finds him, and the ring's tempting him. It's like, about the garden thing and all that. He's like, no, I'm going to give away the ring, and he gives the ring back to Frodo. But Frodo at this point is like, no, it's mine. In some ways, it's like, okay, Frodo, you're starting to freak out now. But they put on in the movie, they put on the orc armor and everything. They start traveling through Mordor, and they already see some ideas that Gollum might be following them. Oh boy! They start crossing. It's very hard to cross, and the closer Frodo gets to Mount Doom, the heavier the ring feels. They're able to get rid of all the armor, and they're just like, okay, this is a suicide thing. We're just going to keep walking and do it because we're going to get caught eventually, but we're going to keep trying just to go forward because there's nothing left to do. They don't have water. They don't have any more lembas bread. They just keep going and going. Of course, Gollum attacks. Sam tries to fight him, but then he runs after Frodo going into Mount Doom. Here's a big difference compared to movie version. He gets in and Frodo's like, now that I'm here, I don't want to do this task. I will not do this task. This ring is mine. And he puts on the ring. But then Gollum, kind of knocks Sam out, but he jumps on Frodo, bites off his finger. Although from what I read, I could be reading it wrong. He put it on his ring finger, not his finger here. He said fourth finger. Now it could be fourth finger, maybe because in England or English, maybe this is considered fourth finger. Perhaps maybe it is. Maybe it's like one, two, three, four, or something. But when I think fourth finger, I think ring finger. So maybe it's an English thing or something. I don't know. It could be just type vernacular thing. I am not sure. But it seemed to me like he put on his ring finger, and that's the finger that got bit off. And it seemed like he bit the whole thing off, not just half of it, but like the whole thing. And it was like, ew. But unlike the movie where Frodo gets up and tries to struggle for the ring, whether to take it back or to take it or to push him in or whatever like that, book version doesn't do that. Book version, Gollum's like, "Oh, I got the ring, I got the ring, I got the ring, I got the ring," and then he slips and falls back, and he dives in. And Frodo's like, you know what? What was said about Gollum being true to the quest is right, because without Gollum, I would not have finished the quest. I wouldn't have, because I would have taken the ring with Gollum being there, completed it. So I was just like, okay. Eagles come and get him. They come back. And of course, they're in Minas Tirith. They get healed and everything like that. Aragorn is, in fact, made king, but he's not just made king in Gondor, but also of Arnor or the north type areas as well. I'm just like, oh, okay, because he has lineage in both. He does marry Arwen, but Galadriel and the rest, they come and see him. They come all down because it's a big deal and everything like that. They all come down. Theoden's body has been laid in Gondor at the time, but they're going to take it back. But beforehand, they're still doing preparations and everything. But they're there, and they meet. They see, being crowned and everything, because they take the crown from like the tomb and they put it on his head and everything. So he gets to marry Arwen, who chooses to be mortal, stuff like that. But probably my favorite little section of the book. uh, gosh, Eomer. He's there and he sees Arwen, and he's completely smitten with Arwen. Like he like falls in love with Arwen, and he sees Galadriel and everything, and he's like, Master Dwarf, about what we said. And he's like, what is it? You know how I said Galadriel's not the fairest lady in the land, depending on what you said with your axe? Would you fetch your axe if you needed to do it? I would fetch my axe if I had a reason to. Well, I have to tell you, I do disagree with you. I don't think Galadriel is the most beautiful woman in the world. That I shall go get my axe. Ah, but it's only because I believe Arwen is the most fairest in the land and is the most beautiful ever. And he's like, I will allow that. Only this. It's just like, what? like, uh, it's like Gimli is definitely in love with Galadriel, but it's just like, for Arwen, it's like, okay, I'll allow you for Arwen for that. That's fine. He admits like she is beautiful, but Arwen, he's like, okay, I'll allow that. Just, it's just that. Oh, it's funny. That was the funny part of the book for me. I'm sorry to say that, but it was. Oh, big thing about Black Gate. Real quick, Mary didn't go. Now, this gets into movie version and book version, but movie version is better in this one aspect because taking Mary to go helps complete the fellowship. It's a big deal and everything. But book version, you actually understand why Mary doesn't go because he's hurt. And from a realistic standpoint, he wouldn't necessarily be able to go because of his injury and everything like that, which he hated. He absolutely hated and everything. But, I mean, that's just the way it is. So, but movie version, I'm glad they did include him because it's just like, yeah, it'd be very important and a missed offer thing if he didn't go. I know if you do, well, maybe get into that later. All right. So the things happen. They stay there for a long while. Then they start heading back to the Shire. And they see Saruman on the way. And Saruman is kind of acting like a beggar or whatever with worm tongue in his thing, because seemingly when they visited Orthanc and Isengard, Treebeard's like, oh yes, I let him go. It's like, why? It's like, it didn't seem like it was important or anything, but Gandalf's like, I fear his voice was able to actually get through you, because he still had his voice which is very persuasive and everything. And seemingly it might have influenced Treebeard to let him go. But he still had Wormtongue following him around. I was like, okay. Then you see him on the way, and he looks like a beggar or something, and he takes offense at that, and he sees the hobbits for the kind of like for the first time, and then he walks off. We'll get to that later. They divert to Rivendell because they want to see Bilbo, and of course the age has finally caught up to Bilbo, and he's very just like he's getting older, he's getting up there. But then they spend some time there in Rivendell, some months, and then they head back to the Shire. They go to Bree. They talk to Butterman again, the guy there, and he says, "Yeah, a lot of, even though everything's been better, the ring was destroyed, but there's a lot of trouble going around Bree. Like, there's a lot of things in the woods that are very scared of stuff going around. It's like, what's going on? I mean, everything should be better, but it seems like all the riffraffs have moved somewhere else, and it's caused a lot of issues with everyone else. And it's like, okay, what's going on?" Then they go to the Shire, and in the Shire, it's been turned to, they try to get in, and other hobbits are preventing them getting in. It's like, well, the what do they call his name? Scary Man. Screw it. They whatever nickname they gave him and stuff. It's basically Saruman, but they get into an idea of who it is and everything, and someone is taking over kind of like the Shire, the Thane, the mayor and stuff, starting imprisoning hobbits, making industry and everything like that, and all the riffraff and stuff are being used as, makeshift army sheriffs intimidating everyone. But of course, Merry, Pippin, Sam, and Frodo have been through a lot in over like a year and a half, and like, yeah, we're not dealing with this. We're stopping this right now. They go in, they ignore the gate, and it's like, get this out of here. And they keep going through. So the movie version, you see in the vision of the mirror, Frodo sees that happening, but that was like a reality that was avoided by destroying the ring and everything, because Pleasure says like, this would happen if you fail. But book version, that actually does happen, although less, not really orcs or anything like that, but they arrive because it's Saruman kind of influencing and doing stuff. But they they kind of beat some guys, but they need an army because they need to rise up the Shire in order to do stuff. They actually get a hold of Tom Cotton and his sons, Rosie Cotton, the one who would marry Sam. They get a hold of him and his sons, and Pippin, he goes and get his family, the Tooks, and the Tooks are all like, we're ready to fight. And people are a little bit intimidated by Merry and Pippin because they drank of the Entwash, especially after that last meeting with Treebeard when they were on the way back, when they went to Orthanc. Seemingly the Entwash does make them a little bit taller. Like in the extended version, Pippin's like drinking is like, oh, I'm a little bit taller now. I'm 3'3", 3'4". That actually does happen. How much taller they got? Don't know, but they did. And they were going through, and there's a big battle between them and maybe about 200 guys. Because up at this point, they were just like toss them up, but they hadn't actually killed anyone except one guy who was trying to do stuff, and hobbits like shot him with arrows real fast, and that one guy died, and the rest of them gave up and ran off. But this one big battle, about 200 guys and a whole bunch of hobbits, they try surrounding with like carts and everything, and they fight, or they tried to. Frodo was bent on like try to avoid violence at all costs. Try to avoid violence at all costs. But Merry Pippin's like, you got to sometimes fight, Frodo, and they have to, and like 13, 14 hobbits die. They kill a lot of the dudes before they give up, but 13, 14 hobbits die, unfortunately. It's like the last, it's like the Battle of Bywater. It's like the last battle that's happened in the Shire, like since that, like early days of the Shire, and then. So it just became a big deal. I was like, oh, wow. But they defeat them, then they go find Scary Man, whatever, I can't remember the name. It's right here, but I don't want to look it up. They go find Saruman, and he's like, yeah, okay, I came here, I did stuff. It seems like he was being vindictive towards the hobbits since he saw them, and he's like, because some of his, weed and stuff, like you see the storehouses in the movie and everything, a lot of that was coming from the Shire. He was actually making dealings with the Shire and stuff anyway, so he was already aware of hobbits. But then he starts insulting Grima, Wormtongue, about stuff, and Frodo's like, you can leave, I'm not going to try to kill you or anything. Now, Saruman insults Grima and stuff, and he starts walking off, and then Grima pulls a knife and then stabs him, kill him, and then they kill Grima. But I almost wonder, just my own opinion, I almost wonder if Saruman meant to die. Because it says he looks at Frodo with almost like a respect and a disdain, a disgust, like, because Frodo was bent on, like, I'm going to try to let you live. And Saruman, on one hand, respected it, but absolutely hated him. I mean, he's been thrown out of his tower, he's been thrown out of his position, he's lost a lot of his power and everything. I wonder if he was like, just wanted to die. And him pushing Grima was the way to do it because he didn't want to die by the Hobbit. So he's like, I'll let Grima do it or something. That at least to me, I kind of read it like Saruman provoked Grima enough to try to kill him, and he did kill him. But I don't know. What do you think of that? When you read that section, do you think Saruman provoked Grima to intentionally kill him, or was it just Grima taken too far? Because I read it in the way Saruman wanted him to kill him. He just wanted to die because he's just like, even in the end, you make fun of me and you defeated me, and just like, all right, I'd rather just die. In a way, it's just, it just seems that way. But, but the Shire's desolate. How do you fix all that? Well, one of the gifts that Sam had, that he was given something from Galadriel as a seed. Like, the big tree that was in the movie and stuff, but it was featured predominantly at the party of Bilbo. They cut that tree down and everything, and Sam wept over that, like weeping over all the trees being torn down, especially that one. Like, he couldn't really get over it. He got a seed from Galadriel. And so he planted that seed, and it was like one of those trees in the Florian type way, and it grew like fast. It grew real fast, but it kind of like brought a blessing to the land. A lot of the life came back, and a lot of more Hobbit children born than ever before, and everything like that. It's like, oh, interesting. So he gets married to Rosie. He has his daughter, but then Frodo's going to go out to the Grey Havens. They go to the Grey Havens. Of course, Merry and Pippin, it was just Sam and Frodo going, but Merry and Pippin arrived because Gandalf told them. And Gandalf, he has them and everything. Because up until that time, Frodo became like deputy mayor. They're trying to reinstall the mayor, the Thane. Thane, mayor? I don't know if Thane's like a governor or mayor, because they use mayor and Thane sometimes interchangeably. So I'm just like, is the Thane the governor then? Basically, like, you have mayors, but then you have a governor. Is that, or is the mayor the Thane? It's kind of confusing. But Frodo gets there, and of course Bilbo's there. They say bye. Frodo hands him the book. They all go back. Sam's like, well, I'm back, and that's how the book ends. So that's how the book is. Much shorter than, say, the others. But, so I can see, well, ironically, the movie's longer than all the other ones. So I can see why they did that, because trying to keep the core people together and everything, because you have several characters like the Prince Erlian, then you got all the Duodyne who've come down to help them with stuff. So it's just like you got a lot of different stuff to, go on and everything. But I mean, for what it is, it's good. I'm happy I read it. Getting into the appendices, it details, what happened with Aragorn, and Arwen. How Aragorn felt like, all right, it's my time to die, and he could just choose when he was going to die, and he feels like it was, and talks to Arwen and calls him a Still, which was his name growing up because he didn't know who his identity was when he was at Rivendell. It gets into a lot of details of like stuff like Sam being 7 times mayor of the Shire and Pippin having a son named Faramir. And also lists the language stuff here at the end, which is like, okay, the genealogy stuff here at the end is like, okay, I've read enough of the appendices to know what's going on. But one thing I'd like to get into, but I'm going to save that for a different video, which is important because in the appendices it talks about a history of the Numenorians, how it rose and fall and everything like that. And it's interesting reading all about the Numenor, reading all about these things and stuff. And I remember from when I looked up the stuff in Two Towers, how he kind of based it on Tolkien based it maybe kind of Gondor like on Italy in some ways and stuff. Because reading about Numenor and stuff with Gondor and everything like that, I'm just like, this feels very Roman. Because I know he's pulling from history and stuff, but for some reason it did pop in my head. I was like, this feels almost like a Roman thing. I don't know if it's just because of the Italy thing or if that's just natural. What I thought it was just like, I almost feel like almost Roman commentary about some things that happen with certain of the kings and everything like that. It's like, this feels like almost like Roman history that he's pulling from here, which would make sense if it's that type thing. I was like, okay, interesting. But that's what I was pulling, at least from that. But um, big thing is that he gets into Helm Hammerhand. He talks about Rohan and everything like that. And of course, you have the new animated movie coming out in December of War of the Rohirrim, detailing about Helm Hammerhand. It actually details that story in the end of the appendices in this book, because the appendices cover all three books. That's why this one's technically the longest book, but it's the shortest actual book, because the appendices start, at least my version, 341, and it lasts like 150 pages. So it's just like, okay, the Helm Hammerhand book. But when I review that video, because I've been waiting to do that because I wanted to read on this, because I remember my brother had these books growing up, and I actually looked at the end of the appendices. So I knew that stuff was there, so I was like, okay. So I want to look at what it is. I've looking at that section, researching it, and then I'm going to look at the video, and I'm going to talk about the video and that, and see where they're probably going to be going with it, because it's actually some stuff you could do here. But the Numenorean history and the stuff of the elves and the dwarves and everything at the end. Oh, one thing about that. Gimli goes back to Rohan, of course, and he becomes, of course, the Lord of the Glittering Caves at Helm's Deep, of course. And of course, when Legolas, he kept saying, I want to see the sea, I want to see the sea. And eventually, when the elves leave, he does get to see the sea. And it's possible Gimli goes with him. We don't know. But he really did make those Glittering Caves something wonderful. He did go see the forest with Legolas, like he said he would. He was like, "I'll see the caves, you see the forest." He's like, "All right," and you see the woods, and he's like, "Great, but these caves." uh, Not really. They did have some poems in this book. I just want to bring that up. They did have some poems, but as far as poetry type stuff, this one does have some things in it. But Fellowship of the Ring is the one that has more of all of that, which is fine. So there's a lot more, different details and everything here and there, but that's basically the gist of the book. Do I have a favorite between the three? Honestly, I don't know. Sometimes Fellowship of the Ring does take a little bit of time to get into because it gets into the history of the hobbits and everything, and it's like, okay, it takes a little bit while to get past all that, and then Two Towers getting into stuff with the Yents and everything. Somewhat interesting, but also is like, okay. Whereas in this, he doesn't really do any of that except till the end of the appendices. So it's like, okay. So it's like, I don't know, the Durin's Day poem is still my favorite from Fellowship, so probably Fellowship from that reason. But I can't really put one above the other because it's all pretty good and they're all substantial. I am super glad I read them. But so now I get to see what those all like. I don't know. I can't really say I have a favorite between the three. Maybe I guess Fellowship because of the Durin's Day poem and because this, like I often see a lot of times people say their favorite out of the three movies is Fellowship because of how it is and everything and how it sets everything up. And it's like, yeah, I could see that in some ways. So, oh, speaking of that, there is some details I do want to talk about. Because it mentions the appendices and different stuff at the end, towards the end, what they were all talking about. I know there's some controversy because in Helm's Deep in the Two Towers movie, of course they brought elves there, and of course that didn't happen in the book. The elves were there or anything, but it mentions in the books how seemingly while they were doing their quests and stuff elsewhere, like I talked about this in the Fellowship of the Ring book, That's part of the reason why that council happened to begin with. The dwarves were there because they were saying, hey, they're coming threatening at us at the Misty Mountains and everything else. We're trying to hold them off. Da da da. That was happening all over the place. Like, what was it, Dane? Like, it gets into Dane's, like, who Nurin and Dane and everything was in the appendices about the dwarves and everything like that, which I like reading because I was the War of the Rohirrim portion. The appendices is actually really interesting. Don't just sleep on the appendices. I know I stopped and I didn't want to look at the, like, Baggins of Hobbinses, this, and the language stuff at the end. I know I kind of stopped before and was like, okay, I'm basically done. But don't sleep on the story portion and everything like that, because it is actually interesting reading about Durin and the Rohirrim and the Numenors. I was like, okay, this is a bit interesting. Actually read it. It's good. But the dwarves and everything were holding other stuff going on, and they were fighting and everything, and it's mentioned about all that going on. So it's just like, yeah, we have the what happens in the movie, but they're actually showing everyone fighting. So it's like, so they actually talk about the sacrifices of the dwarves and elves elsewhere, holding off Mordor's reach, because Mordor was reaching all over the place. Uh, oh yeah, Aragorn. I know I spoke about the Haradim, the Easterlings, but those groups, the ones that surrendered and everything, Aragorn pardoned, because the ones they fought, they captured or whatever. But the ones who surrendered and everything, he said you're pardoned to go back to your land and everything, because he tried to be wise and everything like that. So you could say with the Easterlings, there could be unification, healing for them and everything in the future too. So it's like, oh, interesting. But alrighty, I've talked enough for 40 something minutes. Alrighty, well, I hope you enjoy this video and my long time rambling. But if you haven't picked up these books, go pick them up. Read them. It comes in a set of 4 books. Hobbit to this one. So I hope you enjoy it. I'll see you in the next one. The next book I'm reading is The Great Gatsby, and I'll tell you how that is once I'm done with that. It's a short book. All right, see you in the next one. Goodbye.